Our history books are missing entire chapters. These lost city blueprints reveal medieval architectural marvels that shatter our timeline of human ingenuity. By the end of this journey, you will see the medieval world not as a dark age, but as an era of brilliant and sophisticated urban planning. We will decode ancient plans that show geometric precision rivaling modern engineering and uncover why these revolutionary designs were hidden for centuries. What does a forgotten blueprint from a dusty archive tell us about our own modern cities? A single rolled parchment tucked away in a forgotten corner of a monastic library held the key to a silent revolution. An archaeologist, not even searching for it, brushed the dust from its surface and unrolled the first known medieval city blueprint. The document was breathtaking, not for its age, but for its vision. It depicted a fully planned urban layout with wide streets radiating from a central forum, zoning for markets and crafts, and an intricate water distribution system, all laid out with a geometric precision that historians believed was impossible for its time. This was not a haphazard settlement that grew organically. This was a city born from a master plan, conceived centuries before such organized thought was thought to exist in the medieval world. The blueprint's creator saw the land not as an obstacle, but as a partner. The plans show streets carefully aligned to follow the natural contours of the hills, harnessing sunlight and wind, while aqueducts were designed to use gravity from a nearby spring. This was architecture in harmony with the earth, but perhaps the most compelling clues are the symbols scattered in the margins. They are not mere decoration. Strange geometric patterns and astrological alignments suggest the builders operated from a sophisticated, almost scientific understanding of their environment, a lost knowledge system that fused mathematics with the natural world. Experts like Dr. Elena Vance have studied the document extensively. She notes that this single blueprint reveals a sophistication in city planning that we attributed to much later periods. It forces us to confront a profound question. If this one plan survived by sheer chance, how many other revolutionary ideas are still out there, hidden in plain sight within other dusty archives, waiting to completely shift our perspective on medieval innovation? The blueprint from that monastic library was not an isolated miracle. It represents a hidden tradition of urban design that flourished across medieval Europe, a world far removed from the popular image of filthy, chaotic towns. These were not just random clusters of houses around a castle. They were carefully planned environments designed for health, defense, and community long before the celebrated Renaissance. Take the coastal fortress town of Aigues-Mortes in the south of France. Built from nothing in the 13th century by King Louis IX, its layout is a perfect geometric grid. Its straight streets intersect at precise right angles, forming uniform city blocks that were revolutionary for their time. This was not an aesthetic choice alone. The grid plan allowed for efficient traffic flow, simplified the laying of underground drainage, and made the entire town easier to manage and defend. Every element, from the central market square to the placement of the defensive walls, was part of a single, coherent blueprint. This sophisticated thinking extended far beyond the drawing board. Historical records show that the founders of new towns, often monastic orders who acted as the era's primary engineers, would conduct extensive site surveys before a single stone was laid. They studied the flow of water, charted the paths of the sun, and even considered astrological alignments to choose the most auspicious and practical location. They understood that a city's health depended on its relationship with the environment. This is why we find evidence of advanced hydrology in their plans, with aqueducts and sewer systems designed with a clear understanding of gravity and sanitation. They were not just building on the land, they were building with it. Within these master plans, we see a concern for daily life that shatters the Dark Age stereotype. The blueprints reveal modular housing layouts, meaning homes were built to standard dimensions, creating orderly neighborhoods. More remarkably, some plans designate space for public gardens and communal green spaces, areas for relaxation and growing food, integrated directly into the urban fabric. This was architecture with a social conscience. It was a world where a city's design was intended to foster a functioning, healthy community. So the next time you picture a medieval town, push past the image of muddy lanes and cramped dwellings. See instead the purposeful grid of Aigues-Mortes, the engineered waterways, and the planned public squares. This hidden brilliance forces a complete re-evaluation of an era we thought we understood. But who were the masterminds behind these revolutionary blueprints? The answer lies not with a single king or bishop, but within the guarded halls of guilds and secret societies. These organizations became the silent custodians of architectural knowledge, hoarding and protecting complex plans that encoded ideas far ahead of their time. In medieval England, Mason guilds operated with near mystical secrecy. Their initiation rites were not just ceremonies, they were intensive training grounds where apprentices learned to interpret intricate geometric diagrams. The knowledge of how to lay out a city with perfect proportions or design a self-cleaning aqueduct was not written in books for all to see. It was passed down orally and through symbolic drawings, ensuring that the power of urban planning remained an exclusive, protected craft. Historian Marcus Thorne describes these societies as the Google of their day, a vast, interconnected network hoarding and distributing the specialized knowledge that powered urban development. To understand their methods, we must learn to read their visual language. Look at the vesica piscis, a symbol formed by the intersection of two circles. In guild manuscripts, this was not just a pretty shape. It was a precise geometric tool used to determine the sacred proportions of a cathedral, from the soaring height of its nave to the exact placement of its pillars. This same symbolic geometry was then scaled up, influencing the entire city layout, dictating the radial patterns of streets and the harmonious dimensions of public squares. The city itself was a geometric diagram made manifest in stone and earth. This secretive transmission of knowledge raises a profound question about power. If the ability to design a healthy, functional city was locked away in guild halls, then who truly held the power to shape the medieval landscape? The answer suggests that alongside kings and queens, there was another, quieter authority, the master masons and engineers whose guarded knowledge gave them immense influence. This also explains why some blueprints appear deliberately obscured, filled with symbols that seem like nonsense to the uninitiated. They were a form of intellectual security, ensuring that the most revolutionary urban designs would not fall into the hands of rivals or be misunderstood by those without the proper training. The survival of their ideas depended on this secrecy. These secret guild symbols were not abstract art, they were the working blueprints for entire cities. The geometric principles they encoded, like the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence, were the very grammar of medieval urban design. This was a language of harmony, where mathematics dictated the flow of life itself. Consider the star-shaped fortress city of Pomonova in Italy. From above, its form is a perfect geometric diagram, a series of concentric rings and radiating avenues that create a stunningly symmetrical star. This was not just for defensive advantage, allowing clear lines of sight for cannons. The geometry was intended to create a perfectly balanced social and spatial environment. Every street, every public square was proportioned according to these ancient mathematical rules, creating a sense of order and harmony for its inhabitants. Mathematician Dr. Liam Chen explains that medieval planners used geometry not just for aesthetics, but as a functional tool to optimize space and energy flow. They believed that aligning a city with cosmic principles through these precise ratios would result in a healthier, more prosperous community. The alignment of main thoroughfares with celestial events like the solstice sun was a common practice. This was not mere superstition. It was a sophisticated way to harness natural light and warmth, ensuring that the sun's rays would penetrate deep into the city during the coldest months, while providing shade during the heat of summer. The proportional distribution of public spaces was equally deliberate. The central piazza in a planned city was never a random empty lot. Its dimensions were often calculated using the golden ratio, a proportion found throughout nature, from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the arrangement of leaves on a stem. This created a space that felt instinctively right to the human scale, a place designed for congregation that was both monumental and intimately human. Even the zoning of the city into concentric circles with different rings dedicated to commerce, residence, and administration was a geometric solution to the problem of urban organization. It created clear, efficient pathways for movement and a logical structure that everyone could understand. This geometric foundation forces us to abandon the idea that such mathematical precision was a Renaissance invention. The wisdom of ancient Greek mathematicians was alive and well, carefully preserved and applied by medieval master builders. Their cities were not just collections of buildings, they were instruments tuned to the frequencies of the universe. So the next time you walk through a modern city grid, consider the invisible lines of geometry that shape your experience. The medieval world understood this power profoundly, building not just with stone, but with the very fabric of mathematics. The geometric perfection of a city like Pomonova was made possible by an even more fundamental innovation, the mastery of water. Medieval blueprints reveal hydraulic systems of breathtaking complexity, with networks of aqueducts, cisterns, and drainage that rivaled the famed engineering of ancient Rome. These were not simple ditches, but carefully calculated systems designed to sustain entire urban populations. Consider the lost city of Winchelsea on the southern coast of England. Its surviving plans detail an ambitious port city, complete with tidal mills that harnessed the power of the sea itself, and a network of freshwater channels engineered to supply every district. This was a blueprint for a city that lived in a dynamic balance with its aquatic environment, a testament to foresight we rarely grant the medieval mind. Engineering historian Fatima Al-Jamal observes that these designs demonstrate a proactive approach to resource management that we often overlook. The builders were not just reacting to the landscape, they were sculpting it to serve human need. Water was integrated for both profound practicality and deep symbolism. A moat was not merely a defensive barrier, it was a controlled aquatic boundary that could be flooded or drained. Ornamental fountains in public squares were not just decorative, they were vital social hubs and a public demonstration of the city's health and engineering prowess, providing fresh water while symbolizing life and abundance. This sophisticated focus on sustainability invites a compelling reflection. In an age before modern pumps and treatment plants, medieval engineers created self-regulating water systems that functioned for generations. Their blueprints show a deep understanding of gravity flow, tidal forces, and water purification through settlement tanks. They designed cities that worked with natural cycles, not against them. The lessons from these forgotten plans are remarkably relevant today. As modern cities grapple with flooding, drought, and aging infrastructure, the medieval approach of integrated, gravity-fed water management offers a powerful, almost poetic alternative. It suggests that the path to a sustainable urban future might not be found in ever more complex technology, but in rediscovering the elegant, earth-conscious principles encoded in these ancient blueprints. The true genius of these defensive systems lay not in their static walls, but in their constant, intelligent evolution. A blueprint for the fortified city of Carcassonne in southern France reveals a masterpiece of layered defense, a design that was perpetually updated to counter the terrifying new siege technologies of its era. Each conflict left its mark on the city's plans, resulting in a complex system of concentric walls, projecting bastions, and heavily fortified gates that created a deadly labyrinth for any attacker. As fortification expert General Pierre Leclerc explains, these plans were living documents, painstakingly revised after every battle to ensure the community's survival. This was not a one-time construction project. It was an ongoing conversation between the builders and the ever-changing art of war. The strategic placement of every element was calculated for maximum effect. Arrow slits were not simply holes in a wall. They were carefully angled apertures that gave defending archers a wide field of fire while presenting an almost impossible target for besiegers. The entire defensive layout was a dialogue with the natural terrain, incorporating steep cliffs and winding rivers into the design, forcing an enemy to fight not just the garrison, but the very land itself. This dynamic ingenuity directly shaped the famous star-shaped fortresses of the Renaissance, proving that medieval military architecture was the foundation for all that followed. This evolution forces us to reconsider the very purpose of a city wall. It was far more than a physical barrier. It was a psychological statement of community identity and resilience. The walls defined the safe space within, fostering a powerful sense of shared destiny among the inhabitants. Their collective security depended on the strength of their shared perimeter. How does the design of a city's defenses shape the lives of those it protects? The answer is written in the layered stone of Carcassonne, where protection and community were two sides of the same, meticulously drawn blueprint. The stone walls of a fortress were designed to withstand a siege, but the arteries of a city were built to welcome the world. Medieval blueprints reveal that the most powerful force shaping urban design was not a king's decree, but the relentless flow of commerce. Across continents, from the bustling ports of the Mediterranean to the sprawling caravan cities of Central Asia, trade routes dictated the very form and function of the city itself. Nowhere is this more evident than in the legendary Silk Road city of Samarkand. Its blueprint was a masterpiece of economic logic, a radial design where all major avenues converged on a central, monumental market square. This was not a random layout. It was a deliberate funnel, channeling thousands of merchants and their camel caravans from every direction directly into the commercial heart of the city, maximizing interaction and trade while minimizing confusion and travel time. Economic historian Dr. Anya Sharma observes that trade did not just bring goods, it imported architectural ideas that transformed cityscapes. The blueprint for Samarkand is a living document of this cultural exchange. You can see the integration of Persian-style arched market halls known as timchas, vast courtyards designed for unloading goods, and Chinese-inspired tilework adorning the walls of its most important structures. The city was a physical catalogue of the cultures that passed through it. This global influence extended to the most practical elements of the plan. Warehouses and custom houses were always strategically placed just inside the main city gates, allowing for the immediate storage and taxation of goods without congesting the inner city. Wide, straight avenues were not a luxury, they were a necessity. engineered to accommodate the wide turning radius of a heavily laden camel caravan. And dotting the approach roads to these trade hubs were caravanserais, fortified inns that provided safe haven for travelers and their animals. These were not afterthoughts, they were integral nodes in the urban network, planned way stations that ensured the lifeblood of commerce continued to flow. These trade-inspired designs reveal a medieval world that was profoundly interconnected, a web of commercial relationships that stretched for thousands of miles. The blueprint of a city like Samarkand was a direct response to this global network, a physical machine built for the purpose of economic and cultural exchange. It prompts a powerful reflection on our own time. How does commerce continue to drive the form of our cities today? The sprawling logistics parks, the globalized airport hubs, the very design of our internet infrastructure, they are all modern caravanserais and silk roads, silently shaping our urban landscape in ways that future historians will surely decode from our own forgotten blueprints. The same geometric principles that guided trade and defense also shaped a city's soul. Medieval blueprints were often profound acts of faith, embedding religious symbolism into the very streets and stones to create living sacred landscapes. The layout of Chartres in France is a perfect testament to this. Its urban plan was deliberately designed in the shape of a cross, with the magnificent cathedral positioned at the very heart, the intersection of the sacred axes. This was not a hidden pattern, it was a daily, physical reality for its inhabitants. Every journey through the city, whether to the market or to a neighbor's home, became a subtle reenactment of a spiritual path, with the cathedral's spires constantly visible, drawing the eye and the spirit upward. Theologian Sister Maria Gonzalez explains that these cities were designed as earthly representations of divine order, meant to inspire piety and unity. The goal was to build a new Jerusalem, a heaven on earth, where the architecture itself would guide a person toward a moral life. This symbolic intent is visible in countless details. Main thoroughfares were frequently aligned to point directly toward distant pilgrimage sites, turning the entire city into a waypoint on a greater spiritual journey. Churches and chapels were strategically placed at key nodal points, like market squares or main gates, ensuring that the presence of the sacred punctuated the most important moments of public and commercial life. Even open spaces were designed for contemplation. Some city plans included labyrinths laid into the pavement of public squares, intricate circular paths meant for walking meditation, a physical prayer that anyone could undertake. This deep fusion of faith and urban design fundamentally challenges the modern, secular narrative of city planning. It reveals a world where belief was not separate from daily function, but was the very foundation upon which a functioning community was built. The blueprint was a theological statement as much as an architectural one, so the next time you look at a city map, ask yourself what invisible beliefs might be written into its streets. The medieval architects answered that question with stone and spirit, creating environments where every corner held the potential for grace. The ash that buried the city of Akrotiri on Santorini did more than preserve walls, it froze a moment of genius in time. Beneath the volcanic layers, archaeologists uncovered the blueprints for a metropolis that rivaled the sophistication of anything that would follow for over 1,000 years. Here, centuries before the medieval master builders, were plans for multi-story buildings with complex sewer systems, standardized room sizes, and a clear vision of centralized urban planning. Archaeologist Dr. Nikos Andridis suggests that these preserved plans offer a snapshot of urban life that later medieval planners might have indirectly studied, a ghost of knowledge passed down through the ages. The city's design was a marvel of foresight. Light wells were strategically placed to funnel sunlight deep into building interiors while simultaneously creating a natural ventilation system that drew cool air through the streets. This was climate control engineered in stone long before the concept had a name. Even more telling is the evidence of standardization. Rooms in residential blocks were built to consistent dimensions, and the piping for fresh water and waste was uniform throughout the city. This level of coordination points to a powerful central authority, a governing body with the vision and power to enforce a single, coherent building code for the entire community. The existence of such a planned city from the Bronze Age completely shatters the linear timeline of architectural progress. It forces a difficult question. How does such advanced knowledge appear, only to seemingly vanish for centuries before resurfacing in the grid plans of medieval Europe? The answer may lie not in a continuous thread, but in isolated pockets of brilliance. A city like Akrotiri was a perfect blueprint, but it was a blueprint entombed. Its ideas may have survived in fragments, copied and recopied on scrolls that traveled trade routes, their origins forgotten but their practical wisdom enduring. This creates a haunting parallel between the two eras, a city planned for life, preserved by the very disaster that ended it, its most revolutionary ideas waiting in the ashes for a future age to rediscover them. The rigid Roman grid was a starting point, not a final destination for medieval planners. They took that classical ideal of perfect right angles and straight lines and bent it literally to the will of the land. The blueprint for the new town of Edinburgh in Scotland is a masterclass in this adaptive genius. Its main thoroughfares, like the famous Prince's Street, follow the natural ridges of the landscape, commanding views and ease of travel. But then, weaving through the steep slopes between these grand avenues, a network of smaller alleys and closes creates an intimate, organic web. This was not a failure of the plan, it was the plan's brilliant success, a hybrid approach that balanced majestic order with human-scale connection. Urban historian Professor James MacLeod observes that medieval grids were not rigid. They responded to topography and social needs in ways we are only beginning to appreciate. This responsiveness is visible in countless subtle details. Planners incorporated secluded green spaces or closes within the grid itself, creating pockets of communal garden and quiet refuge amidst the urban bustle. They designed curved streets not for whimsy, but for practical defense against the fierce Scottish winds, using the architecture itself as a shield against the elements. And by allowing for these variations, these designs actively fostered a powerful sense of neighborhood identity. The residents of a specific close or wind developed a shared connection to their unique little corner of the city, a community within the community. This medieval flexibility stands in stark contrast to the cookie-cutter developments of our own time. It encourages a profound rethinking of modern urbanism, a call to prioritize context-sensitive design over one-size-fits-all solutions. The medieval blueprint asks us a simple but challenging question. What if our cities were designed not just for efficiency, but for the specific lives and landscapes they are meant to serve? The main street of Siena was not simply laid out for traffic, it was designed to catch the light. On the feast day of the city's patron saint, the sun would align perfectly with the central avenue, bathing the entire thoroughfare in a brilliant, symbolic glow. This was no coincidence, it was a deliberate act of celestial engineering, a perfect fusion of astronomy and civic life woven directly into the city's blueprint. Medieval planners saw the heavens not as a distant mystery, but as a clock and a calendar to be etched into the very stones of their cities. Streets were oriented to frame the sunrise on a solstice, and towers were positioned to cast specific shadows that marked the hours and seasons for all to see. Astronomer Dr. Helena Rossi confirms this profound connection. She states that these alignments were not accidental. They reflected a worldview where heaven and earth were intimately connected. The city was a mirror of the cosmos. Public squares often featured large, intricate sundials carved directly into the pavement. These were not just timepieces, they were centers of community life. The moving shadow of a gnomon would mark the time for markets to open, for court to be in session, and for prayers to be called. The positioning of bell towers and church spires was frequently calculated to allow for precise astronomical sightings. A narrow slit in a high tower might be the only place from which you could observe a particular star rising over a distant hill on a specific night, turning the entire urban structure into a giant observational instrument. This celestial choreography governed the rhythm of daily life in a way we can scarcely comprehend today. The agricultural calendar, the schedules of festivals, even the timing of civic decisions were all guided by this cosmic clock built into the architecture. It prompts a quiet reflection on our own modern existence. Our cities are illuminated by artificial light on a 24-hour cycle, largely disconnected from the natural rhythms of the sun and stars. How much have we gained in convenience, and what profound connection to the world around us have we lost in the process? The blueprint of Siena asks us to look up, to remember that our urban landscapes can be more than just functional machines. They can be living bridges between the earth and the sky. A city blueprint was as binding as a royal decree. In medieval Europe, these intricate plans did far more than guide construction. They served as foundational legal documents, meticulously encoding the rights and responsibilities of every citizen into the physical fabric of the town itself. Take the founding charter of Krakow in Poland. When the city was formally established, its urban blueprint was ratified by the king, transforming it from a simple drawing into a legally enforceable contract. This document explicitly zoned the city into distinct districts for specific crafts, for trade, and for residence. This was not just about urban organization. It was a proactive legal measure designed to prevent the very disputes over land use that could tear a young community apart. Legal scholar Dr. Ingrid Bergman describes these documents as the constitution of urban space. They established the fundamental laws that would govern daily life for generations. The clauses within these blueprint charters were remarkably detailed. They specified inheritance laws, dictating how a property could be passed down within a family to prevent the fragmentation of urban plots. They guaranteed access to essential resources, legally protecting every household's right to draw water from public wells or to graze livestock on designated communal lands. And they laid out severe penalties for encroachment, for the merchant who might try to expand his shop into a public street, or the noble who attempted to claim a portion of the common green. This legal framework was the invisible architecture that held the physical city together. It enforced a form of medieval equity, ensuring that the powerful could not simply dominate the urban landscape, and that the community's shared resources remained accessible to all. The blueprint, therefore, was the ultimate tool of governance. It visually and legally defined the boundaries of authority, showing where the king's law ended and the town council's jurisdiction began. By mapping out these legal territories in advance, the founders of cities like Krakow were building more than walls and streets. They were constructing a stable social order. This reveals the medieval blueprint in its fullest power, not merely as a plan for buildings, but as a profound act of community building, where the design of a city and the design of a just society were one and the same. These blueprints were more than just diagrams. They were detailed instruction manuals for the hands that would build a city. They codified a deep, practical wisdom of materials and methods, specifying exactly how to turn a vision into enduring stone and timber. Consider the blueprint for the medieval bridges of Regensburg in Germany. The document does not merely show the arch spans and road width, it explicitly calls for oak beams to be treated with lime, a chemical process that protected the wood from rot and insect damage. This was not guesswork, it was an early and highly effective form of material science, born from generations of observation and experimentation. Master builder Luis Mendoza explains that these plans were vital manuals, passing down techniques that allowed structures to stand for centuries. The knowledge was precise and unforgiving. The blueprints detailed the exact proportions for mixing mortar, a recipe that balanced strength with a degree of flexibility to withstand settling and seasonal shifts. They specified how to cut and lay stones for vaulted ceilings, distributing the immense weight of a roof down through pillars and into the earth with geometric precision. Every line on the parchment was a calculated solution to the physical forces of gravity, wind, and time. A crucial, often overlooked aspect of these plans was their emphasis on sustainability. Builders consistently integrated recycled elements, known as spolia, from older Roman structures or even ruined buildings. A fallen column from a temple might become the foundation stone for a new city wall, and carved blocks from an old forum could be repurposed into a guild hall. This was not just thrift, it was a profound understanding of resource conservation. The blueprints also dictated the seasonal timing of construction. Quarrying stone was a task for the dry summer months, while the felling of massive oak trees for timber frames was reserved for the winter when the sap was down, ensuring the wood would be harder and less prone to warping. This synchronization with natural cycles was essential to the longevity of their work. The focus on such meticulous craftsmanship forces a humbling realization. Our modern pursuit of sustainable building, with its focus on local materials and durable design, is not so much an invention as it is a rediscovery of an ancient wisdom. The medieval blueprint reminds us that the most enduring structures are not those built the fastest or the cheapest, but those built with a deep, respectful conversation between human ingenuity and the natural world. The fragility of a blueprint is its greatest vulnerability. These masterworks of urban design, drawn on parchment or vellum, faced countless threats that consigned them to oblivion. The sacking of great libraries during the Crusades or the Inquisition did not just burn books, it incinerated entire archives of city plans, erasing the evidence of urban innovations that predated their time by centuries. A single fire in a monastery scriptorium could reduce a millennium of accumulated architectural wisdom to ashes in an afternoon. Historian Dr. Elena Swift observes that each lost blueprint is a missing puzzle piece in the story of human progress. Without them, our historical timeline is full of gaps and unexplained leaps, forcing us to underestimate the genius of earlier eras. The consequences of this loss ripple through modern archaeology. When we uncover the foundations of a medieval city, we are often looking at a ghost, a skeleton without its original instructions. We can see the stone footings of a complex water system, but without the blueprint, we cannot fully understand the hydraulic principles that guided its flow. We might misattribute a brilliant design to a later period simply because the earlier plan that inspired it was destroyed in a war. This absence has profoundly skewed our understanding, creating the illusion of a dark age where, in reality, a vibrant culture of urban planning was flourishing only to have its records systematically erased. In the absence of written plans, knowledge survived through a fragile but resilient thread: the oral traditions of master builders. A senior mason would teach his apprentices the secrets of layout and proportion through song, story, and hands-on demonstration. These were living blueprints passed from one generation to the next, but they were vulnerable to the mortality of their bearers. If a guild was dissolved or a lineage of builders was broken by plague or conflict, that knowledge could vanish in a single generation, leaving behind magnificent structures whose design principles became a permanent mystery. Today, a new kind of archaeology is attempting to reverse this loss. Researchers are using ground-penetrating radar to map buried city foundations and feeding that data into sophisticated software, digitally stitching together fragments of evidence to reconstruct the lost blueprints. They are analyzing the alignment of ancient streets with celestial patterns and cross-referencing surviving legal documents that mention specific building dimensions. It is a painstaking effort to resurrect a ghost from its footprints. This narrative of loss is more than a historical tragedy. It is an urgent call to action. It challenges us to value and protect the fragile documents that hold the keys to our collective past. For within these forgotten plans may lie solutions to modern urban problems, ideas for sustainable living that we are only now, centuries later, struggling to reinvent. A digital ghost now walks the streets of medieval Salisbury. Using the original city blueprint, researchers have constructed a fully immersive virtual world, a living simulation where we can witness the city not as a ruin, but as its designers intended. This is more than a simple model, it is a resurrection of social space. Digital archaeologist Dr. Ben Carter explains that these tools do not just recreate buildings, they revive the social dynamics encoded in the plans. You can stand in the central market square and watch as the simulation populates it with digital citizens, their movements governed by the same logic that shaped the original design. The wide avenues facilitate the flow of merchant carts, while the narrower alleys create pockets for intimate conversation, exactly as the medieval planners envisioned. The technology brings the most ingenious engineering to life. With a click, you can activate an animation of the city's water system, watching as virtual water flows from a nearby river, channeled through carefully sloped conduits to public fountains, and then drained away through underground sewers. You see the entire hydraulic cycle in motion, a self-cleaning mechanism of stunning elegance that kept the city healthy. Simulations can map the flow of crowds during a religious procession, demonstrating how the city's layout was choreographed to accommodate massive public gatherings, moving people efficiently from the cathedral doors through the main thoroughfares without creating dangerous bottlenecks. Interactive timelines allow you to slide a bar and watch the city grow across centuries, seeing how each new wall, each new district, was a direct response to population pressure or new economic opportunities. This technological leap transforms a static blueprint from a two-dimensional diagram into a four-dimensional experience, adding the crucial elements of time and human activity. It allows historians to test long-held theories. Would that defensive gate truly have withstood a battering ram? A structural stress simulation can provide the answer. Did the alignment of this street really capture the solstice sunrise? The virtual sun can be made to rise on that exact date, proving the celestial intention. This is not just about seeing the past, it is about feeling its pulse, understanding the daily rhythms of life that were so carefully engineered into the urban fabric. We are no longer just studying blueprints, we are inhabiting them, and in doing so, we are finally learning to read the full story they have been trying to tell us for centuries. The winding lanes of medieval Rothenburg were not a design flaw, but a deliberate dance with the landscape. Each curve in its cobblestone street follows the natural rise and fall of the hill it is built upon, creating a town that feels organically grown from the earth itself. This stands in stark contrast to the bold, geometric declaration of a Renaissance city like Pomonova, whose perfect star shape was imposed upon the land as a testament to human reason and control. Art historian Dr. Sophia Ricks captures this profound philosophical shift perfectly. She notes that the Renaissance celebrated control over nature, but medieval plans worked with it, creating a different kind of beauty. This distinction is etched into the very width of their streets. In Rothenburg, narrow, irregular lanes provide natural shade and shelter from the wind, while in Pomonova, broad, uniform avenues radiate from a central point, designed for grand military parades and the unimpeded flow of idealized civic life. The allocation of public space reveals another deep divide. Medieval towns often featured irregularly shaped market squares that grew organically from community use, nestled into the urban fabric. Renaissance piazzas, by contrast, were often perfect circles or symmetrical rectangles, mathematically proportioned to create a sense of harmonious order intended to elevate the human spirit. Even their defensive strategies diverged. Rothenburg's walls cling to the cliff's edge, using the terrain itself as a primary barrier. Pomonova's star-shaped ramparts are a purely geometric solution, a calculated diagram of overlapping fields of fire meant to defeat an enemy with mathematical precision. This comparison is not about declaring one era superior to the other. It is about understanding a fundamental shift in priorities. The medieval blueprint sought to integrate a community into its environment, fostering resilience and a deep sense of place. The Renaissance plan aimed to construct an ideal human society, using symmetry and geometry as its guiding principles. Each era offers a unique insight into the eternal challenge of city building. One asks how we can live within our world, while the other asks how we can perfect it. The legacy of both philosophies continues to shape the streets we walk today, a silent conversation between the winding path and the straight line. The winding lanes of Rothenburg and the perfect star of Pomonova tell only part of the story. To confine our view to Europe is to miss a global revolution in urban design. Far to the south, the stone city of Great Zimbabwe rose from the African savanna, its blueprint a testament to a powerful and sophisticated kingdom. Its structures were not random piles of rock, but carefully planned enclosures built with a unique dry stone technique, where granite blocks were fitted together without any mortar, creating walls that have endured for centuries. The entire complex was zoned into separate areas for royalty, for artisans, and for the public, a clear expression of social order etched in stone. This was not an isolated marvel. Archaeologist Dr. Kofi Mensah stresses that these blueprints prove advanced urban planning was a global phenomenon, not confined to one region. Across the Atlantic, the Maya were designing their ceremonial centers with a cosmic precision that rivaled anything in the Old World. Their cities, like Tikal, were laid out on a grid, but this grid was deeply symbolic. Major temples and pyramids were aligned with celestial events, such as the path of Venus or the solstice sun, turning the entire urban landscape into a massive astronomical observatory. The blueprint for a Mayan city was a sacred map connecting the power of the king directly to the movements of the heavens. Meanwhile, in Asia, the Khmer Empire was engineering a metropolis on an epic scale. The blueprint for Angkor was not just a plan for temples, but for an entire hydraulic city. Its designers mastered the monsoon, creating a vast network of canals, reservoirs, and barrages, or artificial lakes, that stored water for the dry season, irrigated rice paddies to feed a massive population, and likely even regulated the water table to stabilize the massive stone foundations of Angkor Wat itself. This was urban planning on a hydrological level, a dialogue with water that sustained one of the world's largest pre-industrial cities. Each of these civilizations used what their environment provided. In Zimbabwe, it was granite. In the Maya world, it was limestone and a profound knowledge of the stars. In Cambodia, it was water and laterite clay. Their blueprints were not copies of a foreign model, but unique solutions born from local genius. This global tapestry of innovation shatters the outdated timeline that places Europe at the center of architectural progress. It reveals a world where, simultaneously, different cultures were answering the same fundamental human need to create orderly, defensible, and meaningful spaces for their communities. The drive to plan, to design, to build with intention is a universal thread in our shared history, connecting the stone enclosures of Africa, the star-aligned plazas of the Americas, and the water-managed temples of Asia in a single, brilliant story of human ingenuity. Behind the stone walls of a convent, a different kind of blueprint was being drawn. While guilds of masons held their secrets, powerful women were quietly reshaping the medieval urban landscape through patronage and profound social vision. The town of Fontevraud in France stands as a lasting monument to this influence. Its blueprint, overseen in the 12th century by Abbess Matilda of Anjou, is a masterclass in integrated community design. The plan deliberately wove together religious and secular zones, placing a great abbey right beside a bustling market, a hospital, and residential quarters for the poor and the sick. This was not an accident. It was a physical manifestation of a philosophy that saw spiritual duty and social welfare as inseparable. Historian Dr. Clara Petit observes that women used architecture as a tool for empowerment and charity, shaping cities in ways that reflected their values. For an abbess like Matilda, a city blueprint was a canvas for enacting Christian charity on a grand, practical scale. Her design ensured that the monastic community was not an isolated island of prayer, but the active, beating heart of a wider support system for the entire region. This female influence extended far beyond convent walls. Noble women, wielding significant economic power as landowners, were often the driving force behind the founding of hospitals and leper houses. They commissioned blueprints that included specialized wards, clean water access, and spaces for growing medicinal herb gardens right on the premises, integrating healthcare directly into the urban fabric. Some of the earliest university colleges, like the one founded by Countess Isabel de Warenne in England, originated from the blueprints and endowments of women who believed in making education accessible. They designed spaces for learning that included libraries, lecture halls, and residential quarters for scholars, creating a new kind of intellectual community. Even the design of birthing centers, spaces almost exclusively overseen by women, reflected a deep, practical understanding of female health and privacy, concerns that male planners often overlooked. This perspective fundamentally enriches our understanding of the medieval city. It moves us beyond seeing urban plans as merely defensive or commercial tools and reveals them as instruments of compassion and social cohesion. The next time you look at a medieval map, look for the hospitals, the gardens, the markets placed near religious houses. These are often the fingerprints of a forgotten architect, a woman who used her authority not just to build walls, but to build a community that cared for its own. A blueprint could be a symphony of color and gold. Beyond their practical function, these urban plans were often breathtaking works of art, meticulously rendered as illuminated manuscripts. The vellum pages shimmered with vibrant pigments and delicate gold leaf, their borders alive with intricate floral patterns and fantastical creatures. This was not mere decoration. It was a powerful statement that a well-planned city was itself a divine and beautiful creation, a masterpiece on the scale of an entire community. Art curator Dr. Giovanni Bellini confirms this intent, noting these documents were meant to inspire awe, conveying that a well-planned city was a work of art in itself. The conceptual plan for the ideal city of Esforzinda, while a product of the Renaissance, is a direct heir to this medieval tradition of diagrammatic beauty, its radial streets and geometric walls laid out with the care of a painter composing a perfect scene. To read such a blueprint was to be persuaded by its beauty as much as its logic. The artistic language was deeply symbolic. Some plans were drawn in the Mappa Mundi style, framing the city as a microcosm of the entire world, with its walls representing the known universe and its central church or forum standing in for Jerusalem, the spiritual center of the medieval cosmos. The margins of these documents were often populated with allegorical figures, perhaps a painted justice holding her scales overlooking the courthouse, or a personified river god reclining along the planned aqueduct. These figures were not idle doodles, they were visual commandments embedding the values and aspirations of the city's founders directly into the founding document. The lavish use of ultramarine blue, a pigment more expensive than gold, for depicting water features was a deliberate display of wealth and authority, signaling the patron's power and the project's immense importance. This fusion of form and function invites us to see these blueprints in a new light. They are cultural artifacts where the aesthetic choices communicate a vision of order, harmony, and civic pride that words alone could not convey. The art was the argument, persuading all who saw it that this planned city was not just feasible, but was a moral and beautiful imperative. The next time you see a modern architectural rendering, remember this ancient tradition, where the plan itself was a promise of a more perfect world, painted in the most brilliant colors the age could offer. The true mark of a medieval blueprint's genius was its seamless partnership with the natural world. Long before the modern green movement, these plans encoded principles of sustainability that we are only now relearning out of necessity. They reveal cities designed not to conquer their environment, but to engage in a constant, intelligent dialogue with it. In the Spanish city of Granada, the blueprint was a masterclass in passive climate control. Its design incorporated a network of interior courtyards and narrow streets that created cooling channels for air to circulate, while delicate water channels known as acequias brought fresh water from the mountains, channeling it through the city to cool the air and irrigate gardens. This was architecture as a living, breathing system. Environmental designer Dr. Aisha Khan observes that medieval planners worked with the environment because they had to, and today we are relearning that same principle out of necessity. Their approach was holistic. The selection of building materials was intensely local, using stone from nearby quarries and timber from surrounding forests, minimizing the energy cost of transport and creating a vernacular architecture that belonged to its place. Some town plans even designated urban forests within their walls, managed woodlands that provided a sustainable source of fuel, building materials and foraging, while also cleansing the air. Waste was not seen as a problem to be disposed of, but as a resource to be managed. Organic matter was systematically composted to enrich agricultural soils, and the ash from fires was often reused in making mortar. These were closed-loop systems where the waste of one process became the fuel for another. This historical wisdom offers a powerful blueprint for our modern eco-cities. It challenges our reliance on complex technology to solve environmental problems, pointing instead toward simpler, more elegant solutions rooted in a deep understanding of place. What if the future of sustainable urban living is not a radical new invention, but a return to this ancient, intelligent way of building? The medieval blueprint suggests that the most advanced design is the one that listens to the land. A blueprint for survival was etched into the very streets of medieval Bergen. In a climate defined by long, harsh winters and heavy snowfall, the city's design was a direct and intelligent response to the elements. Its buildings were constructed tall and narrow, huddled close together to conserve precious heat and shield each other from the biting North Sea winds. The main streets, however, were laid out wide and straight, not for grand parades, but for a critical practical purpose: to channel the massive spring snowmelt efficiently away from the structures and down to the harbor, preventing catastrophic flooding and structural damage. Every line on the city's plan was a dialogue with the weather. As climatologist Dr. Erik Lundgren notes, these adaptations were born of experience, creating cities that could withstand centuries of change. This deep, localized wisdom is visible in countless details across Europe. In the Alpine regions, you find roofs drawn with steep, sharp pitches, engineered not for beauty but for shedding the immense weight of snow before it could collapse a building. The placement of communal wells was a science in itself, meticulously sited in geothermal frost-free zones where the water would not freeze solid during the coldest months, ensuring a year-round supply. Builders in colder climates often designed homes with earth berms, piling soil against the northern walls to create a natural layer of insulation that kept interiors warm in winter and cool in summer. This was a form of passive climate control achieved through design rather than technology. In sun-scorched Mediterranean towns, the blueprint told a different story. There you see a labyrinth of narrow, shaded alleyways designed to create cooling wind tunnels, while houses were built with thick stone walls and small windows to keep the intense heat at bay. This climatic responsiveness in medieval planning offers a powerful lesson for our own era of global warming. It highlights the timeless importance of designing with nature, not against it. The forgotten architects of these cities did not fight their environment. They learned its language and built a lasting partnership with the land, a wisdom we are now urgently trying to reclaim. The line between a city blueprint and a sacred story was often invisible. Myths of lost paradises like Atlantis and the shining courts of Camelot did more than entertain. They provided a visionary template for real urban design. Medieval planners, inspired by these legends, sought to build their own versions of heaven on earth, blending epic imagination with stone and mortar. The dramatic headland of Tintagel in Cornwall, forever linked to the legends of King Arthur, is a powerful example. Though its ruins are real, its very layout was shaped by the Arthurian mythos, with fortifications and community spaces positioned to evoke the romance and mystery of a legendary court. Folklorist Dr. Morgan Le Fay confirms that myths gave planners a visionary template, blending imagination with practicality to aspire toward perfect societies. This was not mere imitation, it was architectural alchemy, turning story into substance. We see this interplay in symbolic elements woven directly into city plans. The concept of the round table, a symbol of equality and unity, was physically manifested in circular council chambers and rotundas built into town halls, their very shape intended to foster fair and balanced discourse among the ruling class. Labyrinthine street patterns in some market towns were not just chaotic, they were subtle references to the spiritual quest, a daily reminder that the path through life was a journey with a hidden purpose at its center. Towers and keeps were sometimes dedicated to mythical heroes or saints, anchoring the community's identity to a larger-than-life narrative and providing a constant, visible source of inspiration. This fusion of legend and architecture reveals a profound truth about how human aspirations shape physical space. We build not just for shelter, but to embody our deepest hopes and ideals. So the next time you walk through a city, look beyond the brick and pavement. What invisible stories are written in the curve of a street or the name of a square? Our modern skylines are just as filled with narrative, from parks named for visionaries to avenues that echo forgotten battles. We are still building our myths, one blueprint at a time. The true cost of a city wall was not measured in stone, but in silver. Every sweeping arch and cobbled street in a medieval metropolis required a sophisticated financial engine to sustain it, and the blueprints for these cities were, at their core, intricate business plans. They mapped out a flow of capital as meticulously as they charted the flow of water. The founding document for the Hanseatic powerhouse of Lübeck in Germany did not just show streets and warehouses, it outlined a powerful economic pact. The city's blueprint granted trade guilds exclusive rights to manage specific commodities in exchange for their direct financial investment in public works, from paving roads to funding the very guard towers that protected their goods. This created a powerful, self-sustaining cycle where commercial success directly funded urban beauty and function. Economic historian Dr. Friedrich Schmidt confirms this, stating that these blueprints were business plans, ensuring that beauty and function also meant profitability. The financial details embedded in these plans were remarkably precise. They allocated the rental income from city-owned properties, like market stalls and storage cellars, to a specific maintenance fund for the walls and gates. They scheduled annual fairs and weekly markets on a calendar designed to maximize revenue, avoiding overlap with neighboring towns to attract the largest possible crowds of merchants and customers. The very design of the customs house was a masterstroke of economic efficiency. Placed just inside the main city gate, it featured wide doors for carts, a large courtyard for inspection, and secure counting rooms, all engineered to streamline the process of assessing and taxing goods, minimizing delays that could discourage trade. This economic dimension reveals the medieval city as a carefully calculated investment. Its grandeur was not a frivolous expense, but a strategic asset designed to attract more trade, more skilled craftsmen, and more wealth. The blueprint ensured that every beautiful, functional element also served a bottom line. This historical model offers a profound insight for our own time. As modern cities struggle to fund sustainable infrastructure, the medieval approach of creating direct, transparent links between economic activity and public benefit presents a compelling alternative. How do we build cities that are not just livable but financially resilient? The merchants of Lübeck had an answer written into their founding charter, proving that the most enduring urban plans are those that balance the ledger as gracefully as they balance stone. These lost blueprints redefine the medieval world not as a dark age, but as a brilliant chapter in human ingenuity. The geometric precision of Pomanova, the environmental wisdom of Granada, and the social foresight of Fontevraud reveal a sophisticated understanding of how to build lasting communities. This was an era of profound innovation in urban planning, where cities were designed as integrated systems for living, blending mathematics with nature, commerce with compassion, and defense with daily life. These plans were not primitive sketches, they were holistic visions for a functioning society. They teach us that true sustainability is not a modern invention, but a rediscovery of ancient principles. The medieval architect saw the city as a living organism, where every street, every water channel, and every public square played a vital role in the health of the whole. This legacy is not confined to history books. Look closer at the city you live in. That curved street might follow an old river path. That central square might echo a medieval market. The very layout of your neighborhood could hold whispers of a forgotten blueprint. We have only begun to scratch the surface of this hidden history. What other revolutionary ideas are waiting to be found in an archive or uncovered by radar? The conversation continues with you. Share your own observations or a story about a mysterious place in your own town in the comments below. If you want to join us in uncovering more of these lost chapters, subscribe for our next deep dive into the past. Remember, the blueprints of yesterday, with all their geometric harmony and environmental intelligence, truly do hold the keys to building a better, more thoughtful tomorrow. Let us keep searching for them together.